Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of watercolors practice. For this session, I choose, to show you how you can actually do aquarelle portraits, either, of course, from the pictures or from looking at yourself in the mirror, or simply, looking at someone and try to depict the future of the person which is in front of you or is posing for you. So this time in this method, in this video, I'm going to show the dry method. How we're going to wet the paper later, but at the beginning you start with dry paper, aquarelle paper, which you stick with the tape to the board in order to keep it kind of stretched, because when you're going to start apply water and the watercolors with it, and kind of dilute after certain parts and everything, so the paper right away going to be very wavy, and it's very normal, because if you don't want to have it, you have to wet the paper evenly everywhere. Then the paper will be perfectly straight. But in the kind of semi-dry technique, as I am using for this video, you better tape it, and especially it's good for the starters, for the beginners, whoever tries first time to do something like face, which is extremely actually difficult. Portrait is one of the most difficult actually um, uh, subjects to explore, especially in painting. So of course it would help if you have some kind of preparation in how to draw faces. You learn a little bit about the proportions of the faces and everything. It would be much easier for you. But if not, you just try to do your best. And also, when you pre-sketch the form of the face, you always better use actually aquarelle pencil, but not color pencil, rather not um, aquarelle, for example, graphite or charcoal, whatever, because they make the colors dirty, and it's better always use kind of red or sepia, or kind of ochre even. So those they're gonna melt with the colors without too much affecting the nuances in the colored surfaces. Of course, in condition you're using the same gamma of colors, chromatic gamma of colors, as I am using for this face. This phase is the approach is kind of semi-artistic, semi-realistic, but it's actually technique here, and the sketching and filling up after the details and everything is actually much more on the illustrative side, because in doing illustration and aquarelle, you basically actually use this kind of techniques that you first sketch slightly, and after you just work out the details of the element, either it's the face, animal, or any other subject. So you just as I mentioned, you do the sketch, and after you try slowly, very light application of general forms in colors. And if you want to have really kind of color of the skin, you should actually use mix your palette of the skin with sap green, light light cadmium red, and of course ochre yellow, and either amber or sepia. And those colors actually Prussian blue also might help in certain ways if you want to do variation of the skin and everything. And also magenta is very important. Cerulean also is good, but basically you just have the three, like for example ochre and cadmium red, light cadmium red, and sap green, and of course white. You can, however, deal very nicely with the shades of kind of human skin colors. The others are gonna, if you add more colors, of course, like the Prussian blue or ultramarine or cobalt blue or silver or whatever, and other kind of greens, you might, do much richer variation of the shades of the skin. But that's of course it depends which way you want to go. Um, but whenever I do portraits from the picture, I never use the colors on the picture. I just try to be creative a little bit in the sense of application of colors, make them a little bit much more rich, as I would draw from the model. Because when you observe the model posing for you, you will see all kind of actually colors in the face. It depends how the face is turned to the light, to the source of light, but you might have some kind of greenish, bluish, violet, yellowish, all kind of different yellows, oranges. It's all kind of things happens there. And if you have to, of course, train your eye to see those nuances in the face, but if you just kind of analyze, you will certainly discover at least few. So that's what I'm trying to apply on this face. And as I mentioned, it's not going to be super hyper realistic, because if you would like to, elaborate each part to the point where they're really going to be perfect, you need to spend a little bit much more time in order to really distribute the paint in such ways that you don't have actually any traces of it. It's just everything fades perfectly in one color into the other, and you have really impression like this is a real person, or almost like picture of the person. So those kind of techniques demands a lot of work, and I rather prefer, because I'm using aquarelle mostly for fast sketching when I travel, especially, or when I have a project to do. First, I do kind of aquarelle sketch. It doesn't matter if it's an acrylic paint or oil paint or just illustration, whatever is the case. I like to do kind of sketching in aquarelle in order to somehow, do a little research what I can do, how I can use the color, how it could, the form be shaped by different application of shadows and everything and the colors. So this is good practice, whatever you do, even if you want to paint the apple, for example, or something. Before you start doing this, you should try on the aquarelle paper, to try first the stroke of the brush, what effect you can get, and how much paint you have to put on the brush in order to economize your strokes activity on the surface and everything. Because um, applying painting in layers in aquarelle, it's a technique which is not very easy either, because you have to pass the second layer or third layer or fourth layer actually mostly by one gesture and a little help, let's say, with the brush after a little bit spreading of the colors. But every time you need to a little bit clean the brush, and with the kind of wet brush you just kind of help the edges to distribute a little bit, kind of fade them out so they don't gonna dry like very contrasted. And so this is also very important in aquarelle, not just the color application, mixing of the colors, because this you have to train really yourself if you want to do kind of be efficient whenever you go somewhere and you paint and you want to do some aquarelles. And don't having surprises, so you better train yourself. But it's not only this, you also have to learn how you gonna use the brush, because the brush sometimes you use just the point of the brush, sometimes you really use the side of the brush. So and most of the time when you apply colors, you actually after like do another passage, but kind of just fading the edges a little bit with some wet, clean wet brush. So it would give you kind of nice effect and less kind of drying after spots, like of the paint which dried not evenly and everything, creating kind of kind of craters and the painting. So of course all depends the effects you can do with this kind of application of very rough of aquarelle on the surface of the paper, wet certain parts, not everything, in order to get special effects. There's all kind of varieties you can do. This one I am showing actually, as I mentioned, mostly on the illustrative part, how you would use if you want to kind of give impression of reality, not necessarily do it hyper-realistic face, but give kind of impression of realism. And so that's a little bit process which demands a little bit more time, and this video is around 28 minutes and something, so I tried the videos not to be longer than half an hour. So even in the near future I do much more elaborated hyper realistic aquarelle, I would rather do part of something, either face or whatever, than entire face, because entire face is going to take a lot of time, and I don't want these videos to be longer than half hour. And furthermore, I don't do videos which speed up the process of painting. I want you to see how much it takes approximately. You calmly relax, apply the colors without panicking or something. So because in the fast videos you don't have really the perception of time you need for each effect you do, each part you paint. So in the normal speed videos, like in real time, you can see much better, you much better understand how everything works and how much time you need to do this or that. So it is my, of course, personal philosophy of teaching, and it's my way of doing this. Either in drawing, if I teach drawing or something, I always show students how to do what. I never just explain and theorize about this. I just say exactly what you have to do and show. I am showing on the paper when I learn, teach drawing or painting, whatever. Everything is shown first to the student, so as a better understanding what I am expecting him to do. And the same is in this kind of series of videos about painting, because I'm gonna do also about other painting, acrylic, oil painting, whatever. But that's kind of the profile of this video, is rather for those who would like to learn, who never did it and want to try. So this is kind of exercises where they can try themselves, if there's something they would like to do. The aquarelle medium is just excellent medium, and is so beautiful. You can do really great things with it. Of course, it's usually we say that it doesn't matter on which surface you paint or draw and with what you draw and paint. What is important, how you do it, and that's right. I agree with it, that the most important is the mastery of your skills, not necessarily on good paper or with great tools, but if you can afford better paper and better tools, you better do it, because it's gonna be a little bit less painful to do to paint simply in aquarelle, whatever you're gonna do. So regarding the brushes, for example, it's always better to have one great beautiful brush with which you can do any kind of things. So a brush normally you can recognize them very easy, because they're kind of very puffy, but when you put in the water the entire brush, you have the tip super hyper thin, and the hair are very flexible. They lead the color on the paper. They don't kind of get paralyzed a certain way, like some brushes where you wet them and they kind of keep rounded forms, whatever, and they're not flexible. They don't return to the straight kind of nice, silhouette of the brush when it's not in workable place. It needs to be straight, and the tip is, and you have to feel that the hair are really kind of very dynamic, and you can push them that way and the other way, but they always get straight after. So you don't keep the brush, if you push and it's kind of rounded or something. No, it's not good brush that. This way, not good brushes. You have to have elastic brushes, which nicely and very soft, of course. And of course, good paper. If you have good paper, the watering and the distribution of paint in the wet areas, it's much more easier. And some papers, it's so excellent that you just put the stroke whatever way you'd put it, and the paper, it spreads beautifully evenly through the entire surface of the paper which you have wet and everything. So it's matter already in aquarelle. They have good quality of paper, and of course if you want to have great final artworks, like elaborated artworks, because for sketching is good any paper aquarelle, and faster you work, you don't even gonna have the waves on the paper, because you don't put enough water to just simply cause this problem. It is always easy to straighten up the paper, because even if you have a little bit kind of after you finish the painting and you have kind of waves, uneven surface, so it's enough to wet it from the back with kind of vaporizer or something. You wet perfectly and just let it dry, and the only kind of round become the paper, but after it's gonna be so as it dries, gonna stretch it normally, and you will have the surface that's okay. So as you see, I'm showing you the all kind of steps. When actually in any of the steps, if you want to have something very light, you can stop there. You don't have to go further with the painting. You can actually stop when you have very light colors, everything, also in the face and everything, kind of light, pastel kind of, very pastel kind of colors, not very strongly, emphasized the forms. But I go a little bit further with it. You will see what you can do when you just keep going with the layers, and of course it's not going to be final, because if I would like to do final work, it would take me a little bit, slightly more, maybe double of this time. Then I would, you can do much more elaborated things and much more even better. But still, going to finish this face to the acceptable, acceptable quality. So as you see, I'm kind of adding more and more, and further you go, much more contrasted the colors you put, and you observe how the face is, what kind of shadows you have there, in order to get the dimensionality of the face. So you can only achieve this when you're really not afraid to pushing a little bit more and more contrast, because that's how you get the really dimensionality of everything. The same you do in drawing, the same you do in painting, but still we rather closer to the realistic kind of approach than artistic, because in artistic you can do whatever you want. You can even change the form of the face and colors, whatever you do, and it's going to be great. And you don't have to really search for kind of realistic colors of the body or face. You can do all kind of gamms of chromatic shades of the skin. It depends. If you have night, it's different. Kind of very shadowy places is different. Very enlightened aquarelles is completely different. It's much more softer, everything. So, but this is, of course, as you practice, you you gather much more experiences in different situations, and eventually you're going to really understand perfectly well what you can do in such environment or another environment. But that, of course, is something. It comes only with experience. So the same is the reading of the colors, and the way you know work with the brush on the surface of the paper, and how much you wet the paper, how much you put on the brush medium in order to get certain effects. So there's a lot of elements. That's why you need to kind of practice, apply less or more the same method. For example, if you're interested in much more elaborated depiction of the face, you should spend a little bit much more time in softening the edges than I do. And wait a little bit, not necessarily rush, because the good thing about this semi-dry technique is that you just put the color, even if you let it dry a little bit, after you just with wet pen brush, you just the edges you need to spread a little bit or soften it, you can work up with the water and make them either a little bit fading, whatever. So it's really a nice medium, but you have to be careful. You can't you know make the strokes and 1,000 strokes. You just have to do like 2-3 strokes and then wait, and again another layer and again, because when you're applying layer on layer, if you move the pen and the brush too much, you're going to actually destroy what you have already under. The color going to get away with the water. If you water too much, you're going to destroy this. So you need to kind of measure this, and accordingly to the your experience, you will eventually find out how you can master this kind of method of yours, because you can modify my method. You can apply different chromatic gam of the colors you're using and everything, but certain movement of the brushes you can copy exactly as I'm showing here. So you can have your much more abstract application of colors, much more rough, much more um, expressive. But this is for another videos, when I'm going to show you what you can do, also different faces, but in a different way, much more kind of expressive way. This is rather kind of the most, I would say, classic, a certain way approach of doing faces or portraits with colors. So just try to practice, and that's it. In certain details, actually, you can even use, if you can't do it with the brush, if something always happened to you, it's you can actually, certain details at the end, you can elaborate them with aquarelle or watercolor pencils, and you might finalize the painting with kind of drawing on top of it, and after pass with the brush, but very soft. When you pass over the watercolor pencils, you don't do more than 1 or 2 passages very fast, because after when they already get wet, the pigment gets wet, you might either take it off or you might destroy everything. So it's question of speed and exactitude in your movement. So that's what you have to also work. So it's not only color mixing, but also the way you manipulate with your brush is very important in aquarelle. and it allows you to achieve certain effects, particular effects if you learn how to manipulate the brush. So in any state, as you're going to see in this face, I can always change a little bit the face here and there. I can extend it, I can make it larger on the top, whatever, and I get different effects at the same time. So of course, in this case, I'm mixing the cold colors a little bit with the warm ones for the effects, but you can keep everything in one gum of chromatic, chromatic values, but it's of course optional. So try to really follow, or less or more follow what I am showing here, in order to get the kind of courage and the kind of much more certain you have to be about the movement, and don't be afraid pushing the colors a little bit, because sometimes it might just simply help you, and you might have much more interesting dimensions of the face. So as I told you already, in this painting I am not going to kind of elaborate it to the perfection. It's just kind of sketchy impression of reality which I am using here, and that's what my objective was, to just simply make this exercise relatively easy to follow and practice on your own. So I hope you will you don't want to have too many problems with trying to do what I do here, and let's hope it's going to work for you. And just remember that especially from the beginning, you can also do the sketch with the brush, but it's always safer to rather use aquarelle pencil. And after, of course, you can do, as you see, the hair, a little bit washing here and there, and I put color, and after I take it off with the clean brush and water. So it's kind of exercises of doing and extend the hair a little bit. You can change a little bit color of the hair again and again and again. You can actually, the aquarelle medium allows you to do all kind of manipulations with the colors, and also at the same time you discover what is possible to be done if you just kind of decide to go further, not only on the safe side but also in the kind of curiosity side, when you can actually discover your own different modifications of what I propose you in this video to practice. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, and until then, smile and paint and practice watercolor. So good luck to you, and I will be in touch with you soon. Bye bye now, have fun.